Good morning. You are on my two-system clippy thing again. So, sorry if you're jiggly, since it's not very secure. And I just need two hands on a wheel and to focus on the road, like always when I drive. So, yeah, that's just kind of how it's got to be. It helps my PTSD a lot to talk to you guys when I drive, so I know it might seem counterinstructive or counterintuitive. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong at the moment. It might be 3:33 p.m. exactly, but I've been working since midnight and I didn't sleep last night, so my mind is just spastastic. But I'm going to just relax and take a breath for the most part and try to talk to you guys about what's on my mind today. There is a YouTuber and TikToker mainly that has, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I'm debating about putting his name in here or not, because it's not about the views, it's not about the person and who he is. I might put his name in, I might not, so more people can kind of hear the discussion, because there was a reason why I'm making the video, and I wasn't going to. It had nothing to do. There's so much YouTube drama, and there's so many people. I have made a few videos on a few of the YouTubers that are bigger, a few TikTokers who are bigger that I've watched, especially the YouTubers that I watched for 12 years, or more, like just who I knew from other projects even before then. Like I knew of, Colleen Ballinger from True TV before she was ever, known for much of anything and wasn't YouTube this and that. So those people I will talk about, or people who I'm really afraid for, like Eugenia Cooney, but who I think have a good soul, or people I can relate to in the past and not the future, but who I could relate to in the past, or who I can relate to now, in the present. I'll make videos on them to try to help out as well. That all said, sorry for the bad lighting, they were showing some of this person's messages to these women. And at first I was like, this guy seems thirsty and like he's trying to shoot a shot, and yes, he's abusing a position of power, like a podcast, like having a just buku amount of subscribers to bully these people into his agenda, and that's fucked up, and I think that's really rotten. He is somebody that I think is funny. I know a lot of people are hating on him by his content. I think that sometimes it's how innocent he seemed that made it nice, because he was just someone to sit and laugh with. He found good content. They can say people can just sit along and laugh along with stuff, but he picked out things that were pretty funny, and that's what I liked. He kind of picked a good mix of like things that weren't really my style, but like my kids actually thought were funny, and things that I thought were funny as like a millennial and somebody who's a very, very, very early 90s baby, like almost 80s baby, on that cusp. Like it's just at that point where he was entertaining. So my point in this is to just stop going off track. I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers, Michelle McDaniel, and I agree with a lot of what she says, and I don't agree with some of what she says, and so I think that's important. I think it's important to watch people that you agree with, but you don't always agree with, and it keeps you open-minded in a sense, and it at least keeps you listening to the perspectives of the world. I have some people, I don't follow them, but I watch them, that I completely disagree with 100%, but I listen because I want to hear what the other side is thinking, what other people are thinking, and I'm not 100% liberal or 100% conservative. I'm more liberal, obviously, because I've lived with tattoos and I'm not straight. I was raised in a very conservative household that let a lot of bad things happen because it wouldn't open up their eyes, I'm pro-choice. That being said, I don't, there's a lot of areas where I'm not as well. There's a lot of things that I think we could merge on, but it's the vast majority lately has been leaning that way. It's probably 65-35 to give a number to it, whereas I used to say 60-40, and it's not that anymore. It's creeping up more the other way. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I've always tried to be open-minded and to care about other people's opinions and to listen and to care about all people, all skin tones, all races, all sexes, all anything you could possibly believe. I want to at least hear it out, even if it's not my cup of tea, because it's not my place to hate you or judge you or feel that kind of spite in my heart. And I let a lot go because of that, and that's led me to be hurt really badly. And as I've grown and as I've become much more of an advocate for people of abuse, people who have been very badly hurt, I have noticed that I've stood up for myself a lot more, and I recognize abuse and I recognize bad habits and bad patterns very easily within myself, within day-to-day things, and other people. And as someone who helps people for a living, and who also does this social media and talks to people and tries to help through social media, I think that it's something where I've thought and been comfortable, like, okay, well, I'm pretty good with, I'm very good with recognizing other people's things, but it's been a while since I've thought, well, I still let a lot slide, or at least if I let it slide, I'm very aware of it. Like, there's a few situations where, like, maybe I can see I pushed myself too far, but I see that I'm doing it. Well, I was reading some of these texts and just the ways this person worded things, how they were manipulating things, I realized that very recently, not within like the last few months, but within the last year, I've allowed myself, and actually, if we're being very honest, it probably has been within the last 6 months, I have allowed myself to feel guilt towards somebody wording things towards myself personally in a very similar manner, and even given into that guilt, and been talked into doing things, not necessarily nothing illegal or bad in that sense, but like things I definitely didn't want to do. And I think that's sad and terrible. And I was reading that and listening to these people, reading the messages and listening to these people talk about this person and how narcissistic it was, which I think narcissism has been used to explain away just abusive tendencies. I don't think this person is a narcissist. I think he obviously has a lot of feelings and emotions, and that right there gives that up right away. So I think people have like switched those words around. I have a friend who I myself lived with a true sociopath who had narcissistic tendencies, and they are very different. And I have one friend who, she's actually a lady I met at a local church. She's at a church near me. She is one of the other people that truly lived with a narcissist for a very long time. I don't want to give her personal information out, but way longer than I ever fathomed, or could ever fathom, I should say. And most people, a lot of people have dealt with narcissists, but a lot of people are just dealing with really sick, abusive people, and it's okay to not label them, I guess, as one or the other. It's okay to just be abusive. So right off the bat, I didn't agree with that, but listening to some of these things, these abuse tactics, these manipulation tactics this person was using, and hearing, like, yes, of course I would recognize them as an abusive tactic towards like a friend of mine or something like that if I were to be a fly on the wall. But as far as with myself, it was because I was watching alone off hours when I wasn't working. It was very much so I was reading it in a sense as if I was reading it being sent to me, and it hit home. Like, wow, some of these things, some of the ways people are being talked to aren't right. messages of just, oh, I could help you, we could do this together, the person. And I also have a fans only or an OnlyFans, and I know nowadays that it's not as easy as just filming with 2 people and posting. You have to make the other person have like a creator account and tag them or you know, at them on it. You can't just like post a random dick up there. I'm gonna get demonetized so fast, oh my god. But we've lost it already because all of this stuff is about OnlyFans and all of that. And this guy's just a normal goofy podcaster, and he's approaching these women specifically with OnlyFans to try to get on their OnlyFans, and then bullying them for having them when they reject him. First of all, that's predatory. But the fact that he's using his platform to say like, oh well, people basically saw his name or whatever, I'm sure is what he's thinking. And I'm sure after they filmed, he would be like, oh, but just don't use my face, don't use my name. You know what I mean? But he wouldn't say that up front, and these people would be, again, cornered. I guarantee you that's the tactic he would use, because he wouldn't want 11 million people seeing his stuff out there, his junk out there. He wouldn't want that. But it's the way he worded stuff. I've had people... The recent thing wasn't this. It wasn't worded as, like, I could make money for you. And actually the person who I talked to recently, who I think used like tactics to get me to see them, was actually someone who asked me how they independently could like maybe make money on OnlyFans or do something lucrative for them. And then they turned out to be a really cool person. So I'm kind of glad the situation worked out the way it did. They seemed really cool, and they're just emotionally in a bad spot, and I was emotionally in a spot where like I wasn't looking for the same thing that they were in that instance, I suppose, if that makes sense. So to another person it might not have been bad, and it didn't turn out bad in the end, thank goodness. But I have allowed myself to be in those situations where I have been, for my OnlyFans, I've had people very much so, I've had friends and non-friends come at me to want to be a part of it, want to be on it, and I've had to set boundaries there. Or even many moons ago, it was a long time ago, I've had it where, you know, the rules are strict on there, so like you can, you know, agree to something, and then you'll just be like, okay, well, you don't have to post, but you have to make an account if we're going to do something. And then you'll, let's say, film with somebody, and then they'll refuse to make an account. So then it's like, well, you just used me because you filmed, you did everything. So then I learned that very early on, like, okay, well, like, you know what I mean? I'm sure, and it could be the other way too. Maybe the person thought the same thing, because ahead of time I didn't know. I was like, I'm not exactly sure how it works when you post to people, like whatever, at the time, because I'm more of a solo person, and I sell my people like it together. I sell that stuff like privately, like through the messages or whatever on there. So for me, I was like, well, I don't know about just posting it to a wall, we'll see. And when I went to just post it, it was like, oh, well, you have to take somebody, so just please make an account, because this isn't somebody, like, I at the time didn't have the ability to just drive all the way over by them and drop stuff off. I didn't have my own working car at the time. It says, like, I don't know, like, I was getting my Audi fixed, which ended up, it needed an $8,000 just about fix. It was between $4,500 and more than $8,000, and that's if it was just one little part. And when I plugged it into we had one of those little machines at home that runs it, it's going to be a lot more. So that wasn't going to happen. So I had to just get a different car. But it ended up being like, you just make a free account, a creator account, and just let me take, you don't have to have anything. But like, that was too much. And I'm sure they could have felt the same way. Well, I didn't know I had to make this free account. But like, it takes 15 seconds to put in a fake nothing, you know. You don't have to do crap. I just had to be able to take somebody. So it's those type of things that are learning lessons. And then hearing this person, and I don't even know if I'll upload this, but hearing this person use those like micro mannerisms of like micromanaging their little, like, every little thing, like, oh, you messaged me, well, now you must be interested, and being called a flake. As someone with PTSD, that's what killed me. Because to me, like, I know a lot of people are like, know me, and they know if they could not talk to me for a year, but if something really bad happened, I would show up. if they needed me. They know that because they're my friends. They know my heart. They also know I have PTSD. And one of the big things was I had my phone and was calling when I was trying to be safe in the situation. At the time, who I thought was my fiance, who was engaged to somebody else and sleeping around with strippers who got an STD. I didn't get it. It was a temporary one. But still, I didn't get it, and he did. Which says enough. And we were together for years, and this person was cheating on me. He said he was at his job and just didn't, even though he was supposed to pick me up, he dropped me off. I could have driven myself, but he wanted to drop me off because it was a bad neighborhood. Well, he didn't pick me up because he was out cheating on me. He never even had a job. He said he was working for his dad. Never for a minute did he work for his dad. And he let me get hurt horribly. I was barely 21. It was only a few days after I turned 21. It haunted me, and it still does. And because of that, it has always haunted me. To this day, I work on the phone a lot. I YouTube and all. It will take me a couple days in advance thinking of how to YouTube normally. Something spontaneous like this is going to be a more rambly all over the place video because I'm nervous filming it. So I get scared picking up a phone call. I seem like an idiot. And I know for work I have to. I'm doing this program where it's 3 weeks and I get to do work in an area that is my dream. And I'm so scared doing these classes on my phone that it has taken me meditating daily to reply to emails, and I get terrified doing this, but I seem just like a flaky, slow texter, and that's why my friends know me. They know about me. They know who I am. They know it's not me being a shitty person or me taking too long or me. They also know that I'm working multiple jobs and that I've got kids and I take care of my grandparents, and I'm also doing charity work, and I'm also studying. They know, and I've got a court case that I have to testify at. They know what's going on. So it just drove me nuts to see somebody using that, and to see everybody saying oh yeah, people use that to be abusive. I had let so many people use even me just texting back 30 minutes late while at work as being oh, that's abusive, or that's flaky. And hearing people say that is such an abusive thing. If you didn't want to respond to this person, this wasn't your good friend, you didn't have an interest, you're not being flaky, you're not being abusive. You have a right. If you're not in a relationship with them, they're not your best friend. You don't owe these people that. And it just, there were 100 different ways we're watching people review this video, even watching just the one video, the Michelle McDaniel video. It just shook me because I had never realized, even after all of these things that I recognize as abusive, and if someone else told me, oh, well, they didn't text for 30 minutes and someone called them flaky, is that person being abusive towards me? I would say, yeah, yes, they're being an asshole. Don't let it bother you. But internally, towards myself, I let a lot slide. A lot. And I eat it up. I'll think about the way I said hello to people. I really care. I genuinely care about people. And I know that sounds stupid, but I care about the person who assaulted me. And I know if he's ever watched anything, or he probably doesn't care to, but if he ever has, I care about that person. I don't want him to be hurt. He deserves to be locked up because he's dangerous. He's dangerous, and he did what I'm saying he did. And the way I realized the things he said in court to the people sitting there, he was saying terrible things. His own mother had to tell him, adopted mother had to tell him to shut up. And I realized he was doing it to get a rise, to hurt me, to be mean. He's a very troubled, terrible person. But that doesn't mean I would want somebody to get hurt. I don't want people to get hurt. And it bothers me seeing people get hurt. It bothers me knowing our system is corrupt. I don't think he's a helpable person. And knowing that he's hurt underage people, knowing that he's hurt his mother, who I don't even like her personality. She's not been kind. She's not been understanding. But I know the safest place for him is behind bars for the rest of his life. He's got multiple DUIs. Even recently, while he's out on bail with this, he got a DUI and they just forgot to take him back. Because it's violating. He can't be found guilty of anything, especially because he was drunk when he did a lot of what he did. But they just didn't pick him up. Like, he gets away with everything, and he's a very dangerous and bad person. But that doesn't mean that I like the fact that he deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life. That doesn't mean that I want him to be hurt when he's in jail. I hope that it's a peaceful stay, even though I still every day am in physical pain because of him. But I can honestly say that there hasn't been a second that I don't know how to word it. There hasn't been a second that I've felt like anything but healing. I didn't want to say emotional pain because of course you feel emotional pain, a lot of it. It's distraught me and torn my life apart. This person was terrible to me, and then was so blackout drunk that they like claimed to remember it, claimed not to, and then would throw things that they said during it in my face and then pretend that they didn't say that, and it was a mind fuck all the time. They were so controlling of every little thing. They were so gaslighting of every little thing. I mean, to get drunk and to beat the shit out of somebody holding a newborn. I mean, they were terrible people. A 7-day-old. It's amazing what people put you through. And I think when you go through all of these things and you inherently don't even wish bad upon those people, the people that are just like gaslighting you a little bit here and there, you tend to really ignore that. Even if you're healing, even if you realize that like those things were wrong, people shouldn't treat you bad, it's so easy to be like, to the core of your core, I'm going to ignore these other red flags, and then you end up hanging out with somebody and they're not as bad. But not as bad isn't a good person. There are great people out there. There are good people out there. And the shitty thing is, like, I might not seem that to a lot of people. I'm very blunt. But I wouldn't do anything to put anybody in harm's way ever. In fact, I would put myself in front of a bus for just about anybody who deserved it, and a lot who didn't. I've done that for. It's like, but on paper, I mean, if people didn't realize, not everybody who looks at me and sees me go to an NA meeting is going to know that I got sober when I was 21 and a half. They're not going to know that. They're not going to know my story. They're not going to know that I was never, ever back into, like, an inpatient clinic to get sober again. I was fine. Never had to go back in. Nobody else is going to know that. Only me. So they're going to be like, wow, this person's here. You know, and most people who go here are, you know, either not sober or don't have that long, or maybe a year. Most certainly aren't, you know, in their 30s and got sober at 21. Like, it just doesn't, you know, or even if, you know, years down the line, like, I was good for 6 years when my partner started slipping up around me, and I had to do my best to hold it down so I could go and do better. So I went and I made sure to get help so I could maintain my sobriety. So I go and I'm at the highest phase you can be at a methadone clinic. A lot of people judge the shit out of me for that. Oh wow, why do you need to do that? I didn't need to. I was sober. I chose to because the thoughts were horrible and someone was using around me, and I wanted to be damn sure that there was no way I would feel it if somebody offered it to me, so I wouldn't even think about it. And I did it because of that. And you don't. It's not the same methadone that was around. Ask anybody. The liquid stuff, it's not the same as the pills. It's not the same. They watch you when you dose. They do your peak and trough. They watch you. They sit there and they make you sit in the public room and they stare at you and they watch you. And if your eyes start shutting and you start doing anything at all, like you flinch wrong, your eyes blink too long, it doesn't matter. I dose at fucking 4 in the morning, excuse my language. If I act tired, you're done. Your dose gets lowered. And I'm on a lot because of my past, but I don't care. You know, the fact that I had a horrible start, and it was a lot of my family that got me on it as a kid that could barely talk. I didn't choose a drug of choice. It was given to me. And by the time I was not even a teenager, but a preteen, I could do it myself and find it myself. And by 13, I could pay for it by myself. It's one of those things like people will judge you. So these people that you glance around and look at and go, oh, well, I saw that person here. You might want to give them a chance. My idea of what a good person is, or what aren't bad texts, just got blown up a little bit ago over a video. And I realized that maybe I have a lot more soul searching to do than I thought. It's important to know you can always be growing, you can always be learning. And the one piece of advice, if I could ever offer it to anybody, is the way I've learned to be happy is by not feeling like I ever have to hide. I learned that I felt so ashamed of being hurt by people, which is ridiculous. I felt ashamed that I was getting beaten, and I didn't want to hurt that person, so I didn't put my hands on them back. That was a genuine answer of why didn't you stand up for yourself? One, I was so embarrassed that it was happening to me, someone who helps people. I didn't do that. I didn't want it to escalate and to go up by the kids or by my grandparents. And I didn't want to physically hurt somebody. I didn't want to hit somebody. And even while I'm getting kicked with steel-toed boots in the forehead, heels, toes, the whole gambit of it, I didn't want to hurt somebody. This person's a black belt. I didn't want to hurt somebody. And sure, I do MMA, but that's consensual. That's with rules, and you're wearing gloves, and you're like, I might be little, but I hit hard. I hurt when I hit. This sounds like such an egotistical shit thing to say, but every actual fight where I've decided to hit back, it's always been a man. I won't ever lay my hands on a female like that. I'll hold one so they don't hurt me, but that's it. But I haven't lost. But it takes so much to get me to that point where I decide I'm going to put my hands back on someone, and even then, it's not worth it to me mentally 99% of the time, unless I really know, this is life or death. And sometimes by the time it gets to that, you're dying, sadly. It's just awful. And it's just, for me now, the piece of advice is, getting back to that, if you just live saying, yeah, you know what, I did do drugs, but it's not what you think. And even if it is what people think for someone else, even if you did drugs, or do drugs, if you live where you can comfortably talk about, yeah, this is what's going on in my life, and just talk about it, and say it without shame, it's who you are, it's what you're going through. Yeah, you know what, let's say you're on Percocet, it was never my thing. I've obviously taken one or a couple in my life, but it's not my thing. But let's say that's your thing. Yeah, I take it. I have back pain. It hurts. I'm trying to figure out how to get off it, but until I can, that's what's going on. Own it. Own what you are and who you are. And if you're comfortable owning that, when somebody comes into your territory, your space, or when you watch a stupid-ass YouTube video and you realize how hurt you've been and how manipulative shit has been around you personally, and you take the stuff you'd give people for advice and take it inward, you'll be able to accept it. And people will accept you. I spent years being that person where I had a lot of people like me, but it was for something a lot of the time, because I'm helpful, or because I was a very sexual person, or am a sexual person, whatever you want to say. And now I have a lot of people gravitate towards me, and what I hear is I'm a sweet person, I'm a kind person, I would never hurt anybody, I'm genuine. And those aren't things to build myself up, pat myself on the back. Those are just, that's the feedback I hear. I'd much rather be liked for being genuine and true than being sugar-coated or fake. Or a lot of times people take this nature, they take it as funny, and that's okay. You can play it, you don't have to be mean about it. I'll play it off and try to have like a sense of humor with things, try to joke about it, try to, you know, try to keep things light in a sense when they're dark. You've gotta make it an okay space to talk about these hard things. That way, when things come around and they're as simple as that, as simple as, oh, well, you know, this text, you know, this person was texting and they made me feel really bad because they were saying that I was flaky because of this, and it made me really break down with my PTSD. Then someone can help me really quickly. And I'm not the type of person that can say, hey, I really need help right now. I cannot do that. I'm working on it. I'm working really hard on it. But it's really hard for me to take help from others, because the way I feel good about myself is by helping people. And the way I feel good about everything in my life is by giving back. And taking really bothers me. And I know you need that time. You need somebody there. But like, it helps me to listen to my friends. It helps me to listen to other people. It helps me to listen to counselors. It helps me to be there for others. So I'm working on it. I really am. I'm trying. But I need to try harder. And I think this is a really good outlet, because it forces you to sit down and talk about what's going on, talk about, you know, did I say 500 points about every little message that guy said? No, and that's why it might not even be worth mentioning who he was. I probably won't. I'll probably just title it something like a YouTuber or TikToker who messed up, reminded me of whatever, you know, something triggered me. I hate that word. But, anyway, I hope you guys really do stand up for yourselves and just try to live your happiest, best life. I love you guys, and you guys deserve it. Very much so. I'll check you guys out later, and I'm going to film a video that's hopefully not almost 35 minutes soon. Love you guys. Sorry this was so rambling.